worried about their loved ones. People of Turkey, they're coming in from all over the world to look for their loved ones. I caught up with some of them at the Istanbul airport earlier today. I bring you this report. At the Istanbul airport, there are a number of search and rescue teams that are waiting to get to Adana, to Gaziantep, to Marash, to some of the worst affected areas. And right now, waiting for a flight to Adana with us is this team from France. This is the urban search and rescue team from France. And with me is Jonathan. Jonathan, when did you arrive here in Istanbul?
We arrived like 1 hour or 2 hours ago, and we are waiting to go to Adana. So we are waiting with for the flight and with the other rescue team that are in the room with us. Yeah.
Where all are you likely to be? What have you been briefed about the situation in Adana and in Gaziantep and in other parts of Turkey?
So far we are going to Adana, and we will wait with to check with the authority to see where we should go and where they need someone. Okay. Our team is a small team, so we are specialized in search and rescue, so to locate the victims that are underground. So we would like to go, let's say, where there is not so many helps that have been there. So like small village, let's say, okay. If they need.
Sure. And you're a self-sustained team. You don't need anything from the administration in terms of support?
We will need translators, so I think we are cooperating with them and AFAD. That in Adana they will help us to get the cars in order to go to the place where we need to be.
I wish you all the best, Jonathan.
Thank you.
So, as you can see around, this is a team of specialists. Their aim is to get to a difficult area, and with their equipment, they're able to get into the rubble, get inside debris, to be able to rescue those who are trapped inside. And if you look around, there are a number of teams here at the airport, other NGOs, other teams, other support groups, and also a lot of hapless relatives, who want to look at their who want to see and hope, they're hoping against hope that their loved ones will be alive. They haven't been able to locate their loved ones or to hear about them. Now, this flight has been delayed, as have several other flights, because of the inclement weather here in Turkey. It's been raining, it's snowing in some areas. Communication has also been disrupted. As far as the Indian support is concerned, there's one more team that's arriving in Turkey shortly. There are teams that are already deployed in Gaziantep and in Adana, where we are headed. But when you just look around, you just keep hearing, and through the airport you hear these cries of anguish, these cries of pain, as people desperately hope against hope that their loved ones will be alive and they would be buried in the rubble. They want to join that rescue effort and bring them out safely, even after 3 days. With cameraman Kripal Singh at the Istanbul airport in Turkey, Gaurav Sawant for India Today. At the Istanbul airport, there are a large number of people who are rushing in from across the world to look for their loved ones after this devastating earthquake. With me is Ahmad Aksoy. And Ahmad, you're in the construction business in the UK.
Yes, we're doing the construction business in the UK. We heard about this disaster, tragedy, earthquake. I left.
And you are heading to Gaziantep, because Gaziantep is one of the worst impacted areas, and you have family there.
Yes, I've got family, and we lost four of my cousin.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And try to reach them.
I wish you all the best. And how difficult is it to get there? What is it that you are hearing?
Already I'm 3 days here. Just try to catch the flight. Or
3 days you're waiting at the airport to catch a flight?
Going to the Gaziantep. I hope when we're going there, just try to help whatever we can do for them.
Are there any phone calls? Have you been able to be in touch with anyone?
Yes, so many of my friends from London, they're trying to contact us and they want to help. just we don't know how we're gonna do it. But anyhow, we're gonna find a way and organizing and then trying to help the people. Some friends is working here, just trying to make organization to help the people.
And a large number of rescue workers, aid workers, volunteers from other parts of the world, family members, they're all here trying to get to Adana, Gaziantep, some of the other impacted areas.
Kahramanmaraş,
And Marash.
Hatay, Iskenderun, Islahiye,
But no seats, no.
Malatya. Yes, just the first of all, like they're trying to take the who is gonna help, and it's like they're organizing with the AFAD, and the civil can't go easily, but they're trying to take to the safe cities, people's trying to bring flights, and everybody's trying to do their best. We need the people's help.
Absolutely.
Okay.
There is a word in Turkish and in Hindi called dosti. And this is what Turkey is actually looking for at this point of time, that people from across the world come forward and help in the worst of way. India was amongst the first countries to respond to the crisis here in Turkey. Multiple teams have been dispatched from India. The National Disaster Response Force, the NDRF, they've launched multiple teams. There are some that are deployed here in Adana, others in other parts of Turkey. One C-130 aircraft has also been sent to Syria. There are other teams that are on standby to be sent once the teams come here. Now, these teams are self-dependent. They do not need even vehicles. They do not depend on Turkish authorities for any assistance, except, of course, to be told where they need to start working. So the Indian teams are self-reliant for 15 days. They have their own tents, they have their own food, they have a field hospital. 89 member medical team has also come in here. They've come with their vehicles, they've come with their dog squad, they've also come with other resources that may be required. Self-sufficient for the next 15 days. Other teams also on standby. We bring you this report.
But NDRF had been preparing for such deployments for the last several months actually, because we are looking for an international certification, and we had two teams partially ready at two locations, Ghaziabad 8th Battalion and Kolkata 2nd Battalion. So we picked out the best people, the equipment that we require, which is quite a long list, because when the teams move, they have to be prepared for all kinds of situations which this kind of a disaster can bring forth. And these two teams were then documentation was done in a very prompt fashion by the External Affairs Ministry. Passports, official passports made, issued, forms filled, teams collected, ration, tentage. The ethos is that when we go to a situation like this, NDRF presumes that the local administration is already under a lot of stress. So we presume that we should not be an additional stress on them, and we should need nothing from them. So the teams go prepared for a self-sustained 15-day operation. They carry their tentage, they carry their rations, so that if we don't see anybody there, only one person who points out a building to us or a set of buildings, please work here, that's all we need. So in this case, we explored the possibility that whether transportation would be available when we reach, which was not very clear still. So we carried vehicles with us, 3 vehicles with the first team, which landed, left at 3 o'clock yesterday morning, landed at 11 o'clock. Second team landed at 2000 hours in the evening. A total of 7 vehicles, 101 rescuers, including 5 lady rescuers who are doing really well in the force. And they volunteered for this, and they have gone maybe as a first to an international operation, including 4 canine partners with us, 4 sniffer dogs. So these teams are already in operation.
You all must be knowing we do an annual exercise of HADR to build up our capabilities, our capacities, and our SOPs, which is very important. That's how it helped us to respond to such situations very fast. And as brought out, I think within a short time we could mobilize our resources, get everything going, apart from documentation, people, equipment, and be able to there from the time it was known to us within about 12 hours plus So, which is a very quick reaction, and also deploy at a place which is further away, flying time about 7.5 to 8 hours. So the entire planning process which has to be done for such a mission is equally important. So everybody is geared up now to react to such a situation, and that reflects the kind of synergy and the whole of government approach as was being alluded to earlier. So we had the aircraft allotted, positioned in Delhi. As soon as the equipment had come here, the first flight took off early morning at 0300, around that time. It's not a question of day or night. Now we are available 24/7. So it took off early morning hours and it was there landing at around, as mentioned, around 10:30, 1100 hours India time. So like that, we have done 4 C-17 flights to Turkey. And apart from that, 1 C-130 flight which has landed for Syria. And I think by now we have, and there's one more flight which is standing by to go shortly. As soon as the formalities are completed, it will get airborne. So if you look at it, the type of aircraft we are using, the load we are carrying, and we have put 2 medical teams in the last 2 to C-17 which have gone to Turkey. It's about 100 personnel, which has got a lot of specialist medical equipment. So that helps us to help people who are there, and we in terms of whatever they need. So we are only aiding on the ground, as brought out. All these people are self-sustaining. So it helps us to make tasks simpler on the ground.
The temperature right now here is about 1 degrees, and it gets even colder at night. Now, in this inclement weather, it was raining earlier, it was snowing in some parts, but despite the inclement weather, rescue workers are working virtually round the clock. It's extremely difficult to work in these circumstances, and there are some areas where they're still trying to reach. In fact, when you look around, there are a large number of rescue workers who've arrived here and are waiting for instructions to get to areas where help is desperately required. So where we are right now, a lot of assistance is already reaching. The airport is right here. There are several transport aircraft that are flying in with resources. The police, the ambulance services, the emergency services, they're constantly guiding people and taking them to some of the worst impacted areas. The death toll, unfortunately, in this earthquake in Turkey and Syria has now crossed 11,000, and there are some areas where the rescue workers are just about getting in. Some say the worst in terms of the toll is yet to come.
Death, destruction, and miracle survivals. As rescue efforts crawl in the face of many obstacles, what's emerging in quake-ravaged Turkey and Syria are stories of human resilience. This 7-year-old girl shielded her young brother from the debris in a Syrian city for 17 hours. When rescue workers reached the two, she implored them to save them.
عرفت تلعبي ألعاب؟ لك شو؟ آلاء يا آلاء طلع أنا مع أنا ولا كلمة آلاء أحسن منك.
Finally, they made it out safely. In northern Syria, rescuers digging through rubble discovered a newborn girl who was still connected to her mother's umbilical cord. The baby survived, but her mother was pulled out dead from the ruins. Cold weather is hampering relentless rescue operations. Relief workers are racing against time to pull out survivors from rubble before they succumb to the weather and aftershocks. Meanwhile, the Indian Air Force has sent a 4th aircraft with relief material to Turkey. The Indian Army has also mobilized medical teams. New Delhi has rushed to help Syria as well.
Reiterate the solidarity of the Indian people and the government with the people of Syria. So we are also planning to send life-saving equipments and medical assistance and drugs at the earliest for the people of Syria who are affected by the tragic earthquake.
The Indian External Affairs Minister said the country stands with humanity while assuring help for the quake hit.
Dost helps each other. And then, as I said, I used this expression first 2 years ago when Turkey sent 2 carriers loaded with medical assistance to India during COVID time. Now exactly the same happens in Turkey. So we are dost, we are friends, and we help to each other. And we appreciate our help, of course.
Thousands are dead in Turkey and Syria in one of the worst earthquakes to hit the region. And the death toll is only getting bigger. Bureau Report, India Today.
You may have heard of the men in the white helmets, the last men in Aleppo. Now a lot has been written about them. Documentaries have been made, films have been made. Some have called them terrorists. Some have called them people who are not to be associated with. But then there are others who say that they are the real saviors of people, and especially now these men in white helmets, they've turned out to be real saviors in Syria. We bring you this report about the last men standing who are out there rescuing people and helping people in Syria.
The father, along with his son and daughter, were rescued from under the rubble by the White Helmet Rescue Team nearly a day after they were trapped in the debris. Another city in Syria, same story. Another family is pulled out of the debris by the White Helmet Team, while the crowd cheered. White Helmet was the first responder in the rebel-held enclave of Syria as soon as the earthquake struck on 6th of February.
The situation is really tough. We are feeling pain and we have been appealing for aid since the first hours of this earthquake. I swear, we don't intend to use those tools except to save whoever can be saved. To be honest, we reach a person who died some 15 minutes or half an hour ago. We really blame ourselves, saying if we have exerted more effort or if we had more equipment in our disposal, we would have pulled out this person alive from under the rubble.
The White Helmets are officially known as Syria's civil defense. Formed during the Syrian civil war of 2014, this volunteer organization operates in opposition-controlled Syria and Turkey. They are known for the rescue and evacuation work, and they proclaim themselves as neutral in the Syrian conflict. But they are not on the best terms with Syrian President Bashar Assad. Foreign funding to White Helmets stopped in 2018, and since then they have struggled. When the disaster struck Syria and Turkey, they were out with their limited resources, on their toes, digging through rubble for signs of life. And that's how they found the mother in her dying minutes, giving birth, trapped in debris of collapsed buildings.
There are many stories, and this is one of them. She was a pregnant woman in her last trimester, and unfortunately, she was one of the victims of this earthquake. She was under rubble, and civil defense managed to reach her. She had already given birth just before she passed away. She was taking her final breaths when she gave birth. We managed to save the child, but unfortunately, the woman passed away.
الأنفاس حصلت عملية هذه الولادة واستطعنا إنقاذ الطفل ولكن للأسف الامرأة كانت في عداد الشهداء.
The story has now become viral. It's a story of life springing out of disaster in resilience and secured by impartial rescue work of the White Helmet.
The situation here in Adana and in Gaziantep and several other parts of Turkey remains extremely grim. Right now, as we speak, there are rescue teams that are coming in. In all these vehicles, rescue teams are being taken to various locations to try and help rescue people from the debris, and this work will continue round the clock. India Today, of course, will be reporting from ground zero 24/7 on the rescue effort. It's extremely difficult. It's a race against time, but this is a task that has to be done, and every minute here matters because lives are at stake.
Over several thousand lives lost. Buildings turned to dust. Infrastructure up in flames. Children being pulled from the rubble. This is the devastating state in Turkey and neighboring Syria ever since the massive earthquakes ripped through the countries on Monday morning.
The building you're seeing behind me.
India Today, the only Indian channel on Ground Zero, found death and destruction all around.
Families are still waiting, desperately hoping for anyone to come out alive from these rubbles. It's a very tragic day in Turkish history, I can say.
As you see, the rescue team are fighting and fighting against the time to find the people under the rubbles. Yesterday, when there was just the people trying to help people here under this building behind me was fell down, and the people was inside it.
Turkey's president has now declared a state of emergency in 10 earthquake-hit provinces for 3 months.
More than 8,000 citizens have been rescued from under rubbles alive. All the injured who have been pulled out from under rubbles and debris have been transferred to hospitals in Mersin, Istanbul and Ankara.
Meanwhile, the race to find more survivors underneath the piles of rubble and dust intensifies.
The level of this disaster is so high that President Erdogan mentioned it. It's the worst in a century. Well, yes, that's correct. Imagine, I just want you to have a comparison here. We're talking about 57,750 buildings flattened, and the government deployed 53,000 official rescue workers. So even though we have tens of thousands of people coming to help, besides the official rescue workers, nothing is enough. I want to remind you at this point the level of this catastrophe. It's affected. It has been effective in 10 cities across the south and southeast region of Turkey. So we're talking about 10 cities reaching up to millions of people living in this region, and across the border also. So where we're standing now is less than 200 kilometers from the Syrian border, but about 180 kilometers from the border. So it has been effective on the other side of the Turkish border in Syria as well.
But rescue workers are toiling through freezing temperatures to dig through the remains of buildings flattened by the earthquakes.
Building you're seeing behind me was a 14-story building that has been collapsed totally. The rescue workers here told us that only 20 people, 20 bodies were taken out of the rubble here, but none of them were unfortunately alive. So rescue operations like this are going on throughout the country's southeast and eastern region.
Search teams and emergency aid from around the world poured into Turkey and Syria, but chances of survivors is diminishing every passing hour. The fear is the death toll will rise further. With Melda Dogan and Noral Den in Turkey, Bureau Report, India Today.
It's a race against time to save lives here in Turkey. India Today will continue to report from ground zero. That is all I have for you. Camera person Kripal Singh and I have for you on this special broadcast from Adana. Many thanks for watching. News and updates continue on India Today. Stay with us.
Over 3 decades, Business Today has delivered news, views and analysis like no other. Now, Business Today presents the future.
Could I request Mr. Arun Puri, our Editor-in-Chief, to come up on the stage with the Finance Minister as we unveil the anniversary issue of Business Today. This is the 31st anniversary of India's #1 news magazine.
BT produces a cover with an AI avatar of Pichan on its 31st anniversary issue. Visit businesstoday.in/subscribe and subscribe now.
When most of India's business was asking questions of the Prime Minister, was against the Prime Minister, one man stood shoulder to shoulder with the Prime Minister. He didn't back down. That's commendable. It's not a joke. He was loyal to the Prime Minister. And what did he do? He helped Mr. Modi construct the idea of resurgent Gujarat. Right? The idea that you bring these businessmen together, and you call it Resurgent Gujarat, Vibrant Gujarat, they're both. And he was the backbone in setting up that group of people. Okay? And the result of that was tremendous growth of his businesses in Gujarat. Expansion of his businesses.
Marshal Chopra, how could this have happened? I know it's very difficult to conjecture without a full court of inquiry completing its proceedings. But in your mind, sir, because you've been in Mirage 2000s, you've flown from Gwalior, you've flown dynamic missions where you are expected to fly very, very close to other aircraft. You've been a test pilot. How could something like this happen, sir?
Yeah, Chip, first I must tell you that as you have brought out some facts already, that, the aviation over the years has become much, much safer. We know in the First and Second World War, there used to be thousands of aeroplanes in the same area, and yet there were not so many collisions. And over the years, if you see the number of collisions, no, this is unfortunate that we have lost a pilot in Gwalior, but the last one was a SCAT in 2019, which was an inverted flying display. And the one before that was in 2015 when two Su-30s had collided. Yes. So there are phenomenal amount of aids in addition to the support that the ground controller, the radar controller gives you. There is a support within you, the avionics, there is a radar, there are other sensors that are all the time telling you the presence of the other aircraft. But must remember that we are in military aviation. Combat training has to be realistic. The aeroplanes are flying very fast. They are turning at high Gs. There are, high speeds, and there are physiological, forces that are acting on your body. So there is. So what is critical is that situational awareness, the combine of the controller and the pilot, and the other members of the formation. There is a need for a close situational awareness of where the other aircraft is with whom you're maneuvering. But again, as I must say that in this particular case in Gwalior, this Mirage 2000 aircraft and the Su-30 that are reportedly have collided, details are still not known, and any conjectures may not be absolutely correct. But the overall accident rate of the Indian Air Force is phenomenally good. Nowadays you're having a current accident rate is 0.15. Now, how do you calculate accident rate in the Air Forces? For every 10,000 hours, how many accidents have taken place? So the rate is very good. You will recall that in the 1990s, we were losing close to 20 aircraft a year or even more, and the rate was much higher. And nowadays, we have come down to between 10 and 20, and there are many years when you have got less than 10 aircraft accidents, and among them the mid-air collisions are very, very far and very, very few, despite such high performance aircraft like.
Hello and welcome. You're with us here on Business Today. I'm Abha Bukaya. Here are the headlines. Amid global volatility, Indian economy continues to be resilient, says RBI Governor Shaktikanta Das, announces a 25 basis point hike in repo rate while retaining stance of withdrawing accommodation. Reserve Bank hikes interest rates yet again by 25 basis points, the highest in 4 years. The rate hike to directly impact borrowings, making home loans costlier. Join us over the next couple of minutes to decode the consumer impact and the way ahead. Infrastructure conglomerate GVK's Vice Chairman GV Sanjay Reddy rebuts Rahul Gandhi, says there was absolutely no pressure from the Adani Group to sell Mumbai Airport, adds that the decision was made on their own volition, citing that the company needs to clear debt from their balance sheets. Street Digest, 25 basis point hike from RBI, benchmarks closing the green. Nifty with gains of nearly 1%, Sensex up 380 points. Prices continue to be the main concern for the Reserve Bank of India as it hiked repo rates today for an unprecedented 6th time in 9 months. According to the central bank, inflation remains sticky, which is a big problem. RBI also announced a GDP growth estimate for 23-24, which is slightly lower than the estimate announced in the economic survey just 9 days ago.
The world is looking to India, now at the helm of G20, to energize global partnership in several critical areas. This reminds me of what Mahatma Gandhi had said. I do believe, and I quote, I do believe that India can make a lasting contribution to the peace and solid progress of the world, unquote.
An optimistic beginning to the RBI governor's statement on the first monetary policy after the union budget, soon followed by concerns over the one economic indicator religiously tracked by policymakers at the Reserve Bank of India.
Headline inflation has moderated with negative momentum in November and December. We need to see a decisive moderation in inflation. We have to remain unwavering in our commitment to bring down CPI headline inflation. Thus, monetary policy has to be tailored to ensuring a durable disinflation process. A rate hike of 25 basis points is therefore considered as appropriate at the current juncture.
According to the RBI, inflation this fiscal is expected at 6.5%, much above the target of 4%. For 2023-24, the central bank has estimated a figure of 5.3%, which still is much higher than the RBI comfort level. This sustained inflation is the big reason RBI has decided to continue with its task of withdrawing excess liquidity from the market. The RBI hiked repo rate by another 25 basis points to a 4.5-year high of 6.5%. The decision steered in part by global outlook.
The global economic outlook does not look as grim now as it did a few months ago. Growth prospects in major economies have improved, while inflation is on a descent, though inflation still remains well above the target in major economies.
The repo rate hike adds to the fastest ever escalation in cost of money. The hikes began in May 2022 when repo rate was at 4%. 6 hikes later, the benchmark rate is at 6.5%. Though the pace of hikes has slackened from 0.5 percentage point to 35 basis points in the December policy to 0.25 point now. The sustained rate hikes and the fight against inflation may have compromised on economic growth, though. The RBI has forecast a growth rate of 6.4% in 2023-24, which is lower than what the economic survey projected just 9 days ago. It is also much lower than the 7% GDP growth expected in 2022-23.
According to our surveys, manufacturing, services and infrastructure sector firms are optimistic about the business outlook. On the other hand, protracted geopolitical tensions, tightening global financial conditions, and slowing external demand may continue as downside risks to domestic output.
According to the governor, additional capacities are being created in the steel, cement, mining and chemical sector. Higher Rabi output is expected to cool food prices. The central bank is seeing sustained demand in contact-based services, and the massive capex push by the government is keeping money flowing in the system. Interestingly, the US Federal Reserve had also slowed the pace of its rate hikes, boosting hope that the cycle could end soon globally. Bureau Report, Business Today Television.
Some other big decisions have also been taken by the RBI today. These include lending and borrowing of government securities and restoration of the GSEC market timings to pre-pandemic levels. Another big move is to allow foreign tourists from G20 countries the use of UPI.
The next announcement, the next measure relates to extending UPI for inbound travelers to India. UPI has become hugely popular for retail digital payments in India. It's now proposed to permit all inbound travelers to India to use UPI for their merchant payments, that is P2M, while they're in the country. To begin with, this facility will be extended to travelers from G20 countries arriving at select international airports. The Reserve Bank of India will launch a pilot project on QR code-based coin vending machine in 12 cities. These vending machines will dispense coins against debit to customers' account using UPI instead of physical tendering of bank notes. It has now been decided to restore market hours for the government securities market to the pre-pandemic timing of 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Moreover, as part of our ongoing endeavor to further develop the government securities market, we propose to permit lending and borrowing of GSECs. This will provide investors with an avenue to deploy their idle securities, enhance portfolio returns, and facilitate wider participation. It is now proposed to expand the scope of trades by, first, providing insurance facility for invoice financing, second, permitting all entities and institutions to undertaking factoring business to participate as financiers in trades, and third, permitting rediscounting of invoices, that is, developing a secondary market in trades. These measures are expected to improve the cash flows of the MSMEs.
As the RBI hints at more rate hikes on the cards, meanwhile, BTTV Sakshi Batra spoke to Vivek Kumar, economist Quant Eco, and Siddharth Sanyal, chief economist Bandhan Bank, to decode the first RBI policy post the FM's Saptarishi budget.
So what's the rationale that you've thought, you've deferred and, you've inferred from the statement made right there, that why does the governor really think that it is likely to remain this withdrawal of accommodation for some more time to come?
So I think that's a good question, because there are two implications for this. One is what's happening on the global side. In the last 2 odd weeks, in fact, I would say last 4 odd weeks, there are subtle signs on the global picture which are comforting. So China economy reopened. That's a positive sign for global economy. And the US, at least, while yes, there was a step down in terms of monetary policy rate hike from 50 basis points to 25 basis points in February. But the recent numbers which are coming out from US again reiterate the point that the likelihood of Federal Reserve staying higher for longer is something which could turn out to be the case in 2023. Vis-a-vis markets' expectation of a rate cut. So the markets are expecting anywhere between a 25 to 50 basis point rate cut in 2023 from the US Federal Reserve.
For how long would you expect this prolonged pause to be before we can see a rate cycle reversal?
No, I think that's pretty difficult to say at this stage. But typically, if you see the Indian central banking style, it's not. I mean, many a times these days we get to hear that how much the US will be hiking at this moment and how quickly the US will start cutting within a few months. That's typically not the style an emerging market central banker would like to follow. Most probably, if RBI paused a little earlier than the Fed in April, they will possibly try to extend their pause as long as possible, ideally beyond the calendar year at least.
Okay. And in terms of your own growth projections, does it marry with what the projections have been given by the RBI?
We are a bit more conservative. We are in the sub 6% zone compared to RBI 6.4.
Okay. And on the inflation
for the next financial year that we mean.
Okay. For the next financial year, that's FY24, sub 6% growth is what you're penciling in. On inflation?
So inflation, the governor said that an average inflation of 5.6% for the year. We are in a similar zone. We do talk about something of about 5.5% vicinity for the next financial year. But I think on the inflation side, the risks are more evenly balanced and risks are more pronounced than anything else. So basically, the uncertainty quotient on the inflation front is very, very high.
One of the biggest impacts of the RBI decision today will be a rise in the EMIs that you pay on home, auto and personal loans. There'll be a corresponding rise in interest rates offered by banks of fixed deposits as well. Interestingly, according to the date in the RBI governor's speech this morning, while repo rates rose by 225 basis points between May and December, average interest rates on loans were up 137 basis points and on deposits were up a massive 213 basis points. For more on this, we've got Tina Jain-Kaushal joining us, editor personal finance of the Business Today magazine. Tina, what kind of impact will the rate rise have on those with home loans?
Thanks, Abha. Tough time continues for home loan borrowers as the Reserve Bank of India has increased repo rate from 6.25% to 6.50% today. This is the sixth hike since May 2022 and the collective jump in repo rate has been 225 basis points. This steep rise in repo rate will definitely have an impact on your home loan EMIs. For example, if you have taken a home loan of 30 lakh, your EMI has jumped up from rupees 22,757 to rupees 27,410. Similarly, for a loan of rupees 50 lakh, your EMI has jumped up by almost rupees from 37,929 to 45,696. Hence, overall, your EMIs have jumped up by 20% over the period of just 9 months.
Tina, the RBI governor's speech shows the pass-through to deposits has been higher. Does the latest hike in repo rates mean that we can expect a rise in small savings rates as well?
Yes, Abha, after the increase in repo rates, small saving rates are expected to go up. This is because small saving rates are dependent on the bond yields, which have gone up today after the increase in repo rate. And the small saving rates were last revised in December 2022. With this hike, the deposits are going to become attractive. And considering the fact that small saving schemes have direct competition with deposit, they have to the rates have to be risen to make them attractive in comparison with the deposits.
All right, thanks so much for joining us, Tina. Let's take a quick break. Lots of stock-specific action lined up on the other side.
माननीय अध्यक्ष जी, जब राष्ट्रपति जी का भाषण हो रहा था, कुछ लोग कन्नी भी काट गए और एक बड़े नेता महामहिम राष्ट्रपति जी का अपमान भी कर चुके हैं। जनजातीय समुदाय के प्रति प्लीज नफरत भी दिखाई दी है।
Welcome back. Green across the screen today on the Lal Street, 150-point uptick on the Nifty, closing near the day's high to settle above 17,800 levels. The Sensex soared over 370 points to close well above that 60,600 mark. Broader markets also mirrored gains from their larger peers. The Adani pack shining bright. Adani Enterprises closed with gains of over 20%, while Ports was up 9% at close. Among other gainers, we had some life insurers, HDFC Life and SBI Life. Bajaj Finance also ended the day in the green with nearly 3%. On the losing end, we had names like L&T, Eicher Motors, Bharti Airtel, Hero Moto and Axis Bank, all closing with cuts of over 1%. It was the new age tech stocks that were rallying in trade today. My colleague Sakshi Batra joining us to explain the legs of this rally and what's triggering this uptrend. Sakshi?
Well, that's right, Abha. The new age tech stocks were on a roll today with Paytm, Zomato clocking in double-digit gains of 10 to 15% Nykaa and PB Fintech also rising over 6% each. Now, let's first try and understand what is really behind this sharp up move today on these stocks. Now, after a year full of underperformance that we've seen on these new age tech stocks on the D Street, them losing about 40 to 70% of their market value, is there something that's sustainably changing? First up on Paytm. Well, the shares of 197 Communications, the parent company of Paytm, rallied for the third straight session today, and that's after the December quarterly results and after Paytm really posted the first ever quarterly operating profit as a listed firm, and the company's losses also narrowing during Q3. Now, further, major global brokerages have also raised the target price of the stock. Macquarie, for example, has double upgraded Paytm stock to outperform from an underperform rating. Now, Paytm has also positively surprised on the distribution of the financial services revenue by a wide margin. It has also managed to control the overall expenses and the charges that have been looked at positively by the analyst community. Shares of Zomato surged sharply ahead of its earnings as well on the hopes of improved earnings coming about also for Q3. Adding to that, global research and broking firm CLSA Asia Pacific Markets positive growth outlook and the expectations of a strong upside really potential in the stock. They've also lifted the investor sentiment. CLSA Asia Pacific Markets has in fact raised Zomato's earnings estimate for
the next 2 financial years by about 4 to 8% due to the company's improved focus on profitability as well. The broking firm has also given a buy rating to the stock along with a target price that is now at 70, which translates to over a 40% potential upside from the time that the company had given out this report. Now, Nykaa and PB Fintech were the other movers in trade today, over 6% gains ahead of the Q3 earnings. While these may be looked at as promising signs for these new age tech stocks, the moot question now is on the investor's mind that whether the worst is over for these new age tech stocks.
The big question. Thanks for that, Sakshi. Well, staying with some more stock-specific action, the Adani pack showing a recovery trend. Adani Enterprises rallied as much as 20%, ending the session at the day's high. Adani Ports was up nearly 9%. Adani Wilmar, Transmission and Power all locked at upper circuit. Barring Adani Green and Total, the only two stocks from the conglomerate that closed in the red today. Well, the RBI has reiterated that the Indian banking system remains unaffected by the Adani controversy. Just a couple of hours ago, he announced a hike in repo rates, and the governor was also fielding questions on the Adani issue. This is what he had to say.
We have issued a press release on last Friday. I'm nothing more to add to that. Individual cases and their numbers, as you are aware, we do not discuss in the public domain. Having said that, let me mention in addition, because so many questions are being raised in the public domain, in the last 3 to 4 years, the Reserve Bank has taken a number of steps to strengthen the resilience of Indian banks. We have come out with clear guidelines to regulate the governance in Indian banks. We have issued guidelines about the functioning of the audit committees. We have issued guidelines for the functioning of the risk management committees. We have now made it mandatory for appointment of chief risk officer in banks. We have also made it mandatory for appointment of chief compliance officers of the banks, and we have given through our regulations the desired level of autonomy to the chief risk officer and the chief compliance officer with regard to his functioning within the bank. The chief risk officer, for example, reports directly to the audit committee. And there's so many other regulations which I am not going into. We have also rationalized in the last 2 years the large exposure norms. And all that I would like to add at this point of time that the Indian banking sector, including the the NBFC sector, since you referred to a couple of them, the Indian banking sector and the NBFC sector continue to be resilient and strong.
Zoom and eBay are the latest tech companies to announce layoffs affecting roughly 2,000 people. They join the likes of Dell, who earlier this week announced 6,000 job cuts. This takes the total number of layoffs in big tech to more than 150,000 workers in recent months. But what's driving this firing frenzy, and when will it come to an end? Business Today's Akanksha Chaturvedi brings us more. Akanksha, do we have numbers on the extent of the layoffs? How many people have been impacted in the last few days?
Well, that's right, Abha. The latest slew of layoffs have impacted people at eBay as well as at Zoom. Zoom laid off around 1,300 people and eBay let go of 500 people. Just a couple of days ago, Dell also announced layoffs. Dell let go of 6,500 people. And this contagion of layoffs has been spreading last month. Amazon announced layoffs. They'll be extending to 8,000 more people, which means a total of 18,000 people would be laid off at Amazon. Furthermore, Google also announced that they would be letting go of 12,000 people. So far, when you count all the companies and all the people who've been let go, the figure sits at around 150,000 people. A little over 150,000 people have lost their jobs in the latest tech layoffs, which has hit the industry in the past few months.
Akanksha, what are some of the reasons why these tech giants, which were otherwise dream employers of techies, are firing so many employees?
So we've been able to narrow down the reasons behind these tech layoffs, and we've concluded that there are broadly 5 main reasons why these tech companies are, going through this mass layoff exercise. And the first reason is the COVID overhiring. And during the COVID-19 pandemic, we saw that the product needs of companies had evolved overnight. Like, for example, Google Meet, which allowed only a selected number of people which could, who could go on the platform and participate in video conferencing meetings. They had to, transform the product overnight to let more participants in meetings. Similar things happened with WhatsApp's video conferencing platform, and other companies also, this is just one example. And there are other tech companies, who hired more people because their products had to be changed in the COVID-19 world, in the world which was going through the pandemic. Another reason behind this has been the pressure from investors, and investors as well as all these people, angel investors in companies, fund managers. They've been pressurizing these companies to, let go of people so that they can brace for the upcoming slowdown.
All right, Akanksha, we'll leave it there. Thanks so much for taking us through all of the factors at play. That's all we have time for on the show tonight. Thanks so much for watching.
अनेकों देशों में अस्थिरता का माहौल है। कई देशों में भीषण महंगाई है, बेरोजगारी, खाने पीने का संकट, और हमारे अड़ोस पड़ोस में भी जिस प्रकार से हालत बने हुई है, ऐसी स्थिति में माननीय अध्यक्ष जी, कौन हिंदुस्तानी इस बात पे गर्व नहीं करेगा कि ऐसे समय में भी देश दुनिया की 5वीं बड़ी अर्थव्यवस्था बना है। आज पूरे विश्व में भारत को लेकर के पॉजिटिविटी है।
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com.
You are watching India Today.
Hello, you're watching India Today and I'm Aishwarya Paliwal. Let's start the show with the headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi taunts Rahul Gandhi and the ecosystem after the Congress made the Adani attack. Prime Minister reminded the opposition of the UPI era scam, says Nafrat ka sach has been exposed. Rahul Gandhi renews his attack on Prime Minister Narendra Modi over Gautam Adani. He accuses Prime Minister of avoiding all the questions. He claims that the Prime Minister is still protecting Gautam Adani. GVK Group fact-checks Rahul Gandhi, says that there was no pressure on the group to sell the Mumbai airport to the Adani Group.
Several people have been injured after a leopard enters a court premise in Ghaziabad. Forest authorities are continuing to hunt the leopard. Death, destruction and devastation in Turkey and Syria. Over 11,000 people have been dead so far. India Today is the only Indian channel reporting from ground in Turkey. Now, there were fireworks in the parliament as Prime Minister Narendra Modi made his motion of thanks speech today. Prime Minister came out all guns blazing against the Congress party and its MP Rahul Gandhi. Now, Rahul Gandhi has been trying to corner Prime Minister Narendra Modi over the entire Adani controversy. Rahul Gandhi was seen chanting Adani, Adani when the Prime Minister was making his speech. Rahul Gandhi is now saying that the Prime Minister has not answered any of his questions so far.
सीबीआई ईडी का प्रयोग कर जीवीके पर दबाव डालकर हिंदुस्तान की सरकार ने उस एयरपोर्ट को अदानी जी के हाथों में कर दिया।
पूरा इकोसिस्टम उछल रहा था और कुछ लोग तो खुश होकर के